One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
This is the James Golden Show with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Undeniable attempt to change this exceptional character, to beat the American spirit out of us, alienate us from our history, and to make it impossible to even answer the question, what does it mean to be an American? As we march into our 250th year, incredible, beautiful year it will be, we must never forget there is no American freedom without American culture. And there is no American founding without the American people. Many nations have paper constitutions and legal systems, but the citizens live in fear and squalor. A constitution is only as strong as the people and the culture responsible for upholding it. But as long as we remember who we are, we have to always remember who we are and what we're all about. The United States of America will forever be the land of free men and women, and we will never, ever fail.
Here we are. It is 250 years today. America, Declaration of Independence, was released, as we use today's parlance, for the American people and for the world. That was Donald Trump, his speech last night on American exceptionalism, something that Rush Limbaugh used to talk about all the time. And so glad to hear the president talk about America in that context. Here's a telephone number if you want to be part of the program today. And we've got such a program lined up for you. Princess Diana will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. Also, Dean Karayanis, historyauthor.com, who is our official historian for the program, will be joining us. Also, we're going to take a slight detour from just the 4th of July stuff and talk about something else that has come up this week with, oh man, this is kind of deep too, with America's Dr. Miklos, which is the creation of a cellular creation by human beings that has taken place. And wow, I when I talked with him, sent him an article about that, he just sent it back and said, fascinating and terrifying. So we'll touch into that as well as your telephone calls at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. President Trump actually also said some things that were striking and that the audience responded to greatly. One of them concerned the English language. That would be Trump too. And this is what President Trump had to say in his speech celebrating the 250th year of American history. This is one of the remarks he made yesterday.
In America, we speak English because that is the language of our founding, and for 1,000 years,
listen to that.
That has been the language of freedom. An American always wants peace and order, but we will never shrink from danger or threat. We will always fight, and win. We got to do that. Because this is our culture, this is our character. Not every American is all of these things, but every American knows these are the traits that make our country exceptional, and exceptional it is. You do not have to be born here, but you do have to love what we have built. You must love our country. There has never been anything like us anywhere on earth, and we are not going to let anyone take that away.
One of the things that I have been thinking about, ladies and gentlemen, is how young America still is. I've said this many times, America is a young nation. In fact, this week I've been just thinking it in terms of if we compared lifespan to a human life, where would America be? And my estimation is, depending on how far back you want to go, in terms of recorded human history, we're still a baby, a newborn. In terms of recorded human history. But if you go back further, go back closer, in many ways, just 1,000 years out, we would be maybe a toddler as a nation. Maybe just like a 2-year-old. Compared to some of the civilizations, and I have some things going back, and if we have time, maybe I'll go through them, what the world was like in 776 AD, and then what the world was like 250 years beyond that, 250 years beyond that. But let's just look at America this way. 8 to 10 generations, depending on how you count generations, have passed since the American Revolution. 8 to 10. If you're using the standard biological and sociological benchmark that 25 years is a generation, and that's counted by the average age that a person has their first child. That's where you come up with that. If you're using a historical benchmark, it's 30 years in a generation and 8.3 generations. 8 generations have passed since the American founding. But that could get weird too. Famous real-world example, President John Tyler, 10th President of the United States, was born in 1790, shortly after the American Revolution. He had a son when he was 63 years old. He had grandsons that were still alive in the 21st century. So, why is this important? It's important because America is so young and we've done so much. Now, let's say you were born in 1776 and you lived to be 70 years old. Not unreasonable. That means you would have passed away in 1846, shortly before the Civil War. Between those years, the years of your birth, if you were born in 1776, the year that America's Declaration of Independence was signed, and you lived 70 years, you would have seen an America that had massive breakthroughs. First was something a lot of people hate to talk about, the cotton gin. Why was it big? Eli Whitney had invented this machine to separate cotton fibers from seed. It boosted agricultural output, but it supercharged slavery. And then you started seeing the Industrial Revolution began being born during those years. The mechanical reaper was used. Again, agriculture. The steamboat. We don't remember that. We remember in school, Fulton's Folly, the steamboat. But steam energy began to be used. The Erie Canal was once considered a great, people don't even think about it right now in New York. Mondami referred to it in his speech. But one of the biggest things was the railroads, 1830s. You would have been 60 years old when the railroad started to be, boom, steam locomotives. So you had the steam-powered ship, then steam, let's use them in locomotives. You had the telegraph, which was the beginning of the communications revolution. And in medicine, surgical anesthesia, which up until that time in 1846, you had surgery, good luck. You're going to experience a lot of, it's still not a pleasant experience, but can you imagine now? We can't even imagine surgery without anesthesia. In 17, it took America a long time from the time America signed the Declaration of Independence until we came up with a functioning government. 1787, the United States Constitution came into being. The Bill of Rights added in 1791, 9 years away from the 1800s. In 1790, we start private property. The Patents Act allowed for intellectual property to be yours. You owned the fruits of your own intellect. All these things are huge. Now, let's say you were born in 1846 and then you passed away in 1816. What did you see? You saw, of course, the Civil War. And think about that. If you, let's say your parents were born and lived to 70 in 1776, and you, one generation later, that's you saw the end of slavery. A heinous, evil system that has been present in the world since biblical times, but asterisks on that, chattel slavery, the way that it was introduced into the Americas, was not always what slavery was. It was a particular evil that separated parents, that separated families, that separated people from their religions. Their religion separated people from their entire culture, from their being. Now, why is that important? Because even if you go back through in biblical times, slavery, remember when we read the Bible and the Jews were they kept their religion. They kept their language. They kept their families. This chattel slavery that was introduced into the world was particularly heinous. But you lived to see in your parents born when the Constitution, when the Declaration of Independence, you lived to see America as a nation get past its original sin, at least on paper. And what did you also see if you were alive during then? You saw the Industrial Revolution explode. You saw energy, infrastructure, steel, all these things take place that changed the entire world. You began to see the beginning of the oil revolution that still powers the world. Despite what the environmentalist wackos will tell you, it is oil and quote-unquote fossil fuel that still fuels the energy of most of the world. If you were alive during that period, you saw the electric grid. Remember, Ben Franklin with the key, the electricity, the kite. There were no electrical appliances. But you saw that transformed if you were that generation, once removed from the generation that was born when the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence were signed. You saw Thomas Edison, one of America's most incredible geniuses, opening up the Pearl Street Station in New York City, the first commercial power plant. It replaced gas lighting. It powered factories. Cities became illuminated with incandescent light. Changed the world. The 24-hour economy was basically born during your lifetime if you were in that age group. You saw the Transcontinental Railroad. All of a sudden, the continent of America is linked. You saw the beginning of the auto industry. More geniuses. Henry Ford. In aviation, you saw planes, thanks to Orville and Wilbur Wright. All of that. And you're just the second generation away from when America signed the Declaration of Independence. James Golden, Snerdley here. Beach Boys, 1964. On this day, went to number one and would stay there for the next 2 weeks. It was their first number one record. 800-848-9222. James Golden, Saturday morning extravaganza continues. Don't go away.
My buddies and me, you're getting real well known. Yeah, the bad guys know us and they leave us alone. I get around.
This is the James Golden Show. James Golden Show. 4 words that mean business. With James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry.
Birthday today.
5 days since you laughed at me, saying, get back
For Andy Trigan, pianist with Bare Naked Ladies. Happy birthday, Andy. Happy birthday, America. James Golden, Snerdley, Saturday morning extravaganza. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. We're going to head to the phones as soon as we can. Just talking about some of the things. So far we went through 2 generations, really. If you lived to 70, not 30. And all the things that took place. Imagine if you were born in 1916 and you lived to 70 years old. It means you would have passed away in the 80s. What you saw during then, you saw the First World War. You saw America rise from almost not being on the world stage at all to being a superpower. It happened in your lifetime then. And this is many of our grandparents. Many of them. In the older generation, for some of you youngsters, it's your great-grandparents. And maybe some of you were fortunate enough to know your great-grandparents. But they saw, if they were born in 1916, they saw World War I. And some would argue part 2 of World War I, which was World War II, same thing in Europe. But in that, the advances that took place are astounding in terms of communication, in terms of science, medicine. During even the 1860s to 1880s, we had germ theory. People started to understand germs. The discovery of X-rays, how that changed everything. The telephone, we forget, had already been in existence. 1876, that happened. Then you had the beginning of the motion picture and record industries. Thomas Edison, again, genius. But that had already been around for almost 30, 40 years. If you were born in 1916. The advances that took place in aviation, the advances that took place in communications, the advances that took place everywhere else. Then, by the time you would have finished in 86, civil rights movement was 20 years old in America. Yeah. So we have done, when you start looking at history from that perspective, you realize if you put in place the history of the world and mankind, you will realize how great America is from a standpoint of what would be historically a blink of an eye. This nation is born, and the miraculous things that have changed human history have sprung, many of it from the freedoms and liberties that the American capitalist system allowed that were not present in the world before since the beginning of humanity. James Golden Snurley, it is Saturday Morning Extravaganza. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. 800-848-9222. Princess Di's coming up, Dean Carianis, and Dr. McLoss later, so stay right here.
The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Elias, what's up with this?
This is Janet Jackson. I love Janet Jackson. She started a 2-week run at number 1 on the U.S. album chart with this album, Control. And the album features hit singles like this, What Have You Done For Me Lately? Nasty, Control, When I Think of You, and Let's Wait a While. It was a big one, and I think it came out in 1986. It was a huge album.
Yeah, it did, 1986. And Janet, this was the one that really blew her up.
Oh, yeah.
On the 5th of July, it went to number 1 in 1986. As you celebrate and party and get ready for the sounds of warfare tonight. And every year. You know who doesn't like that? Rashida Tlaib. We have Rashida. Cut 1. This is Rashida Tlaib. She was asked what she's going to do for the 4th of July. This is how she answered it.
My 4th plans are in the best place in your home state to watch fireworks.
Well, I'm going to fight fascism.
Okay.
I'm going to fight fascism on the
for
front.
democracy.
But what about the fireworks?
So I'll tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with fireworks.
Oh, do you really? Tell us why.
So there was some expansion done in regards to fireworks in Michigan, and boy, I hear from my residents all week.
Oh, no. Yeah. You remind me.
Just for all my residents, please follow the ordinances. You're only supposed to do it a certain time of the day. My residents, they love it. They want us to
4 a.m. Yeah.
It's even longer. I know. So, I'm always very, very protective of our families and residents. I want people to enjoy time together and be safe.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get some of my seniors that call and say, please, Rashida, as if I can come knock on the door.
I
and make
know.
them stop. Yeah.
And your poor pets. I know. They're so scared.
Yes.
So, well, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful 4th.
You too.
Bye.
I know. Let me fawn. How do I fawn over here? I know.
Oh, yeah. But I have to just admit the honest to goodness truth. This whole fireworks thing, at some point, like at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, I'm like, are you people done yet? It sounds like a war out here. At least in certain neighborhoods. Stop already. Let people go to sleep. Some people have to work. Maybe not you. Okay, but that's that. But I love the, okay. Enough of that. People have been waiting on the telephones, and I want to grab some calls real quick before it gets to the point where we can't. I've got so much other stuff here. Let's start in Tennessee this morning with Harold. Good morning, Harold, and welcome. How are you? Welcome to the Saturday Extravaganza, your Saturday vibe. How are you?
I'm great. I woke up again.
Understood and agree. What's on your mind this morning, Harold?
I'd just like to mention some of my 4th great-grandfathers that were Revolutionary War veterans. Captain John Lee Williams.
Wait a minute, just to hold it. Your 4th great-grandfathers.
Yes.
Were fought in the.
I didn't know this till I got Ancestry. Yes, Revolutionary War.
Okay, mention them.
Captain John Lee, he was at Valley Forge. William Steen, he was at Kings Mountain. There's John Dale, he was a paymaster. Jonathan Montgomery. And there are more I don't have written down. I didn't know all this. Nobody told me. And then I got sent in a little bottle of spit, and then I found out. I got...
Isn't this, you got the DNA ancestry. Isn't this amazing? You talk about advances, and now you go back just in your fourth removed grandfathers. And you think about it, there's not that... Mm-hmm.
It goes back to sixth great-grandfather was William Lee in Northampton, Virginia. He was born in 1688 to 1717. I'm wondering, am I related to those Lees that signed the Declaration of Independence? There are two of them.
You very well may be. And that's worth digging into and looking on your family tree.
In the Civil War, most of my ancestors fought for the Union here in Carroll County. We didn't vote to secede here. They were captured by Nathan Bedford Forrest at Trenton, Tennessee. I saw on Finding Your Roots, Mr. Gates' show.
Yes.
They served with Mary Steenburgen's great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
I had no idea.
You know, by the way, for all the angst that has come between conservatives and Mr. Gates, I watch Mr. Gates' show. I've watched it. And it is a fabulous show. I really enjoy watching it and looking at the way that they and that crew go about, as they say, finding your roots. Finding your roots. Harold, go ahead.
I learned on that, too. That Kirk Douglas's first wife was a Deal. One of my grandfathers was a Deal. I may be a cousin to Michael Douglas.
Well, ain't that something? Well, worth looking into, Harold. Look, thank you for the call. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this, the 250th birthday of the United States of America. Let's catch up. Thank you for the call, Harold, with Louis calling in from New York City, from New York.
Actually, Bo, I'm calling in from Lodi, New Jersey, which is near Hackensack.
I know exactly where Lodi is. Been there many times.
Okay. Bo, somebody needs to remind our media that throughout history, everybody's ancestors were enslaved, that everybody's ancestors were raped, and every square inch of earth is conquered territory.
Well, I don't know whether every square inch of earth is conquered territory, because there are some... No, it's not. Let me finish my thought, for goodness sakes. Okay, every square inch of Antarctica has been captured. Okay, fine. But I don't disagree with everything else that you're saying in terms of the historical perspective. Yes, every evil in the world has been present on the earth and has affected everybody. I've made this point very often. If you go back and you look at homogeneous societies, if you go back and, for instance, if you look at the feudal age in Japan and you look at their history, you will find things that will blow your mind. If you go back and you look through the long histories of Egyptian, going back, when you start looking at ancient civilizations and you go back in ancient civilizations, you will find the evil. It is there. It is present. It is present as because we all share the ancestry of being mankind and womankind, and it's present in all of us. So from that standpoint, yes, Louis, I agree with you very much.
It's simply this, that American slavery is nothing unique, and you know that. Anybody who has...
Wait a minute, stop it. Stop. Just wait a minute. Yes, American slavery is something unique. And I started talking about this before, and I don't want to get into this whole tangent. Chattel slavery was not the slavery that was practiced through most of mankind. Now, you need to go back and check your history on that.
No. By the way, 4 times as many slaves went to Brazil that came to America. Anybody who is a critical thinker knows
so
that.
what is that? Does that make it right?
No.
People that argue it. Look.
America is no good, okay? America didn't begin slavery, but America ended it. America inherited slavery, and it was America that ended it in this country.
Well, what other country would America end it in? Of course, and that is the point that many of us make all the time. But I mean, come on, please don't sound like you're defending slavery because everybody else did it too. And it wasn't anything unique. Yes,
I'm criticizing the media. I'm criticizing the media.
I understand that. But let me say something to you. This is not just some academic discussion to me. My great-grandmother, who I knew, was married to a slave. Okay? This is not some academic, didn't happen all these hundreds of years ago. The last slaves died out in America right before the beginning of World War II. And many people are still living the effects of it. So while at the same time, I don't want this to be the overbearing message all the time because people are just tired of hearing it and beat down over it. At the same time, there is history there that should not be minimized or just thrown away because that history is important to the American story. And I don't want it minimized, and I don't minimize it. And so when I'm hearing this tone, I don't quite understand your tone on this.
I know you don't, because you're not a critical thinker. Let me finish my point, okay?
Goodbye. I'm not a critical thinker. All right, let's move to Steve in Tennessee. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, Bo. Hey, I'm reminded this morning listening to you of the program in which, and I think you'll be reminded of this too, the program in which Rush was asked when it would be time for us as Americans to panic. And he immediately came back with, it will never be time for us to panic. We're Americans. You remember that?
Do I remember it? I took many of those calls over the years asking Rush when it would be time to panic. And the last time that I took that call, the last time he answered that question was a few weeks before his death. And we had the question come up again, and Rush got emotional. Maybe he knew that he would not be answering, I don't know, that he probably wouldn't be answering this question anymore to a caller, but what he did say was what you said. He said, and it was emotionally said, and you nailed it. He said, it will never be time to panic. We are Americans. We can never give up on America. We can't do it. And just as you remember it because of the profound impact that it left, when you mentioned it to me, it just struck deep. Yeah, struck deep. Well, I hope you enjoy your Independence Day, and thank you for bringing that to our memory, okay?
Okay, bro. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Sal in New Jersey. Sal, got to make it quick. How are you this morning?
Yes, James. Happy 4th of July. Now, you pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That should be on our American flag, every American flag. I happen to have one. It's a 4-by-6-inch American flag. I have it on my car for years and years. I am a veteran, and I'm just going to be turning 81, and I would serve this country again if needed.
Sal, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service to this nation. And thank you for your love of America, Sal. There's nothing more to say that you haven't said, so thank you. Appreciate it. Let us go to Yonkers, New York, and catch up with Walt on this Independence Day. Hello, Walt. How are you?
Hey, James, happy Independence Day. This year they're having a gaggle of international naval ships at anchor all along Riverside Drive, and they're bringing a bunch of sailing ships led by the Coast Guard cutter Eagle into port. They did the same thing 50 years ago for the bicentennial, and then I was a reservist on active duty, and very long story, very short. I took a landing craft, amphibious landing craft, with about 15, 20 journalists to view the naval ships, and we got just 50 yards from the British cruiser that was at anchor, and at the instant 200 years after independence was formally declared, we watched the British Royal Navy Band play the American national anthem on the deck of the British ship.
Wow. What an experience that must have been. Incredible. Walt, I hope you enjoy this day, and thank you so much for the call. We have to get to a break, folks, really quickly. So we have time maybe for some other calls. Dean Karayanis, historyauthor.com, is coming up with us a little bit later. Princess Diana is coming up. She's a critical thinker. I'm not. According to our caller there, Mr. Know-It-All. Jimmy Crespo was born on the 5th of July, which is tomorrow, in 1954. He was a guitarist for Aerosmith up until 1984. Happy birthday, Jimmy Crespo, Aerosmith. James Golden Snerdley. Coming right back. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Tomorrow, what an anniversary in music. Marty Balin, who, by the way, had his own successful solo career, too. And Paul Cantor decided they were going to form a group. It was a folk rock group, and it evolved into something. It evolved into Jefferson Airplane, which then evolved into Jefferson Starship, which then evolved into Starship. But the evolution began on the 5th of July in 1965. Hard to believe, 1965. Jefferson Airplane. Born. James Golden Snerdley with you here. One of the things, I'm just looking at the clock here, and calls. Let's see. Lewis is calling in from Queens. We played the cut of Donald Trump talking about the English language earlier. Lewis says you want to discuss that for a moment.
Yes, sir. A very highly relevant comment made by the president in light of the fact that we have the English language, and also the fact that it eventually evolved over 1,000 years, but it's much more than 1,000 years. It is uniquely and specifically to the Egyptian culture of the last 3,000 years that we even have the English language today. The eventual evolution of that language through about 20 or 30 different steps led to the development of the alphabet.
Wow. And so you have studied language. Is that what you have, that's what you specialize in, or you just do this as some sort of a hobby?
I have a master's degree in semiotics and in linguistics. Yeah.
And you have a master's degree in, what was the first thing you said?
Semiotics, signs and signals, like, the old story about the sign with the red slash through it, with a picture of a cigarette, which literally says no smoke.
And that's semiotics.
It's symbols and signs instead of
right. Symbols and signs, right? As language. Okay, so let me ask you this: And English is still, what is the most widespread language in the world that is spoken?
At this point, it's a tie between Hindi and Mandarin Chinese.
Really? So the most widespread Mandarin?
Yeah.
And Hindi.
Mandarin Chinese. There are one, I believe it's almost over 1 billion people, 1.2, I think, billion people who speak Mandarin Chinese in some way, shape, or form. And there's about 900 million who speak Hindi.
And where does English language fall into the spectrum?
English language is, I hate to tell you this, but it's actually a minority language.
No, it's fine. I just want to know the facts. It doesn't, one way or another. So when you say it's a minority language, what do you mean by that? I mean, obviously, more people speak Mandarin, more people speak Hindi, according to what you're saying.
Yes.
So it's minority in that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, numerically speaking. And what's also interesting, by the way, sir, is that the Soviets, the Russian people, acquired their language about 1100 AD when a very learned monk of the church decided, he was a very intelligent guy, way beyond his time. He developed a language based on the Roman letters, the Hebrew letters, and the Greek letters, and actually created a language which his ministries went through. That what we call the Soviet Union, the Far Eastern European, and gave them the language. And the present-day Russian was created in that way. But it was still based in almost totally, not completely, but almost totally on the English letters that were derived originally from the Egyptians and Mesopotamians.
Wow. And once again, to just bring everything back home, why do you think it's so important that Donald Trump stressed the English language in his speech?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's two reasons I would bring up right away. First of all, the fact that it is the predominant, literally the predominant language of the West. In some way, shape, or form, most Europeans learned English. The British Isles speak fluent English. The United States speaks fluent English, and and also the preservation of the English language as it stands at this point. I'm glad that Trump made a reference to that point, because what happens is it's being corrupted right now, incredible amount of corruption in the English language. It's all these slang terms and various other terms by the far left and so on, subverting person and all that nonsense. They're jiggling it around and juggling it around.
We have to end it there. I want to hear more from you, especially about the evolution of the English language. We have to go. Our number uno in the can, our number duo coming up, my friends, on the Saturday morning extravaganza. Whatever you do, stay right here as we celebrate America at 2:50. Don't go away.
This is the James Golden Show with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Welcome, my friends. Our number duo underway here at the Saturday morning extravaganza. I am Bo Snerdley. I'm James Golden. One and the same. Your Saturday morning vibe. If you want to join us on the telephones this morning, 800-848-9222 is how you do it. 800-848-9222. Joining us now, head honcho of historyauthor.com. It's his website. They do look at history, and that's why historyauthor.com exists. Authors who write about history, who know about history, led by our official historian, Dean Karayanis. Dean, formerly web producer of one of the web producers of the Rush Limbaugh program. Also, Dean Karayanis, a columnist in his own right, author in his own right, many things besides history as well, as cuisine, for instance. Today, you will find an article from Dean, The Misguided Americans, and that's in quote, and their inadmissible claim of independence. Dean, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good, James. Happy Independence Day to everybody. I'm glad that you asked me to be on. It's always great, and I find my introduction gets longer every time, and my head gets bigger.
Dean, tell us about your article today on this 250th anniversary. Well, actually, yesterday, the July 3rd was when they finished up the Declaration, but it was announced on the 4th, correct?
Well, John Adams thought that the second, and that's the kind of things that are interesting. John Adams thought the second would be the big day, and it's little things like that that I'm glad you mentioned, because we're familiar, I'm sure your audience is familiar with Rush's father's speech that he gave every year, the Americans who risked everything. And because of little details like that, a lot of people dismiss the whole. They say, well, the signers none of them were executed, for example, or the famous story about Benjamin Franklin saying we must all hang together or we will certainly hang separately. And then Benjamin Harrison saying to Elbridge Gerry, because Benjamin Harrison was a fatty, then I'll be done right away, but you'll hang. All these wonderful stories, but a lot of them are just embellishments over the time, what President Trump calls truthful hyperbole in the art of the deal. And so then people say, well, none of it is true, and dismiss the entire story. And I know if Rush was here, and you know this very well from all the years we were with him, he would correct those little things. And we might call some of the things a distinction without a difference when people nitpicked on things. And so I wanted to write a column for the New York Sun about what they really went through, and not the version that you might tell kids where, okay, it's okay to exaggerate a little bit. You get different versions maybe as you get older. People summarize for the sake of storytelling and sake of inspiring people. And so I wanted to write about what they really went through. And they did risk everything. And they were men of privilege, which is different from other revolutions. This was not storming the Bastille because you were a bunch of people that were starving. These guys were indeed well fed. They were perfumed. They weren't grubby like we think of guerrilla fighters in the Latin America that we make very romantic stories about various countries and say, good, they cut the head off of that king. This was people who benefited from the status quo, who said, you know what, more than my harpsichord, more than my comfortable life, more than my privilege, I value liberty, and I want the king out of my life. And that really sets it apart from other revolutions where it was just because people had nothing to lose. These men, 56 of them, had everything to lose. And I wanted to pay some tribute to that. And I think we live in a very cynical time. In some ways, that's good because we want the real story. And I wanted to just tell it, and I thought that was a good way to do America 250.
Now, the misguided Americans, an inadmissible claim of independence. Explain that phrase, how that phrase was uttered, where it was uttered, and why.
Well, America, at the Constitutional Convention, one of the things is we didn't know what they were doing. I'm sorry, when they were talking about the Declaration of Independence. And so we didn't really know what they were talking about. And we didn't really know what they were saying when they were there. And so a lot of that comes later when people write secondary documentation, much, much later, like 40 years later, 50 years later, where people took some notes. And so they said that they had these inalienable rights. We know all of those phrases and all of those things. And so they started writing things down as they remembered them. And so that was one of those things. I mean, there's so many great phrases and so many great points. And that's what I talked about today. I mean, I don't know which column we're looking at or which version of the headline that you got, but my story today was on the Declaration, and then I'd also done one about the Ancestry.com that they're allowing people that are opening their vaults to look back for Continental. So I just want people to go back and read those primary sources. That was my main goal over this. And that also included a lot of Black Americans who don't feel a connection to the revolution. And I think it surprises people to find things like 25% of the soldiers at Yorktown, that big final battle, were black Americans. And they served as double agents behind the lines for President Washington, for the Marquis de Lafayette. And I think it's an interesting thing. It's the kind of thing that I know you love and I love, that nobody speaks up for them because they're not convenient. The 5,000 to 8,000 black soldiers that served, it's inconvenient because you're certainly not going to have guys like Robert Byrd and Ralph Northam out there touting them, or a David Duke, and then you have a guy like Al Sharpton who says this isn't our party, don't participate in it. Well, to me, you're erasing the contributions of them all. Now, some of them were freed. They were hoping they would be part of the people of all men are created equal. We know that doesn't happen for a while, but they take that first step. They take that leap of faith, and eventually they convince Washington. Washington wants to eject all of them from the Continental Army, meaning black soldiers, and then he sees how they fight, and he sees other soldiers say, well, we need them. They can fight, and the British are going to recruit them if we don't give them guns. And so he changes his mind, and I think that that's something that it's good for us to remember, because I think we live in a time where people just think, well, you have one fixed opinion, that's it. We don't even try to persuade anymore. There's too much of the violence that we have seen. Well, you believe that? We're never going to try to convince you to change your mind. And through what they gave, through what they all gave, they changed the world together. And so that's, I guess, my major goal here is with all that writing, is to just try to remind people to look back.
I want to focus, too, just for a quick second, on the age of the average age, Dean, of the Founding Fathers, 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. When you average their ages out, it comes up to 44 years old. You have people like James Monroe was only 18 years old. Aaron Burr, 20 years old. Alexander Hamilton was 21 years old. James Madison, 25 years old. John Jay, 30. Thomas Jefferson, author, given credit to being the foremost author of the Declaration. John Hancock was not even 40. He was 39. John Adams was 40. The George Washington was 44 years old when all this came to him, the responsibilities he took. The old man was Benjamin Franklin, who was 70 years old at the time. But this document and these, and as you say, when you talk about the fact that these were people of privilege, of means, not of privilege in the way that the left uses it now, but they had a lot to lose. And these were young men for the most part. With the exception, of course, Samuel Adams was a little bit older. He was 53. Ben Franklin, as I mentioned, was 70. But many of these founders were young. They had everything to lose. Everything. And they could have just as easily settled into a life of ease and had a life of ease. But they chose a different path. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that the important thing you hit on there is that they knew what they were risking. And that includes the fact that people want to talk about the ones that own slavery, and as well they should. But they knew, they were smart enough, they were learned enough to know that when you start a revolution, you lose control of it really fast. And they were smart enough to know that eventually that liberty would be extended. And they made efforts, of course, to try to change slavery. They knew that it would be a stain on the nation. And I know that's what a lot of people want to focus on. And again, look at that just static picture. But they knew that their homes would be burned, and many of them were burned down. They knew that their families would suffer. One founding father, he saw his wife, that was Robert Morris. He saw his wife, Robert Morris was a financier. This is the problem. You start to get them all mixed up. But Francis Lewis of New York, let's say a New Yorker, he got his home destroyed in the Battle of Brooklyn. His wife was abducted, was captured by the British. They stuck her in a cell, no food, no bed. They eventually released her, and her health was ruined. She ends up dying a few years later. They do die. Many of them die before they ever see independence. They knew they were risking everything. They knew that if they were captured, none of them were executed, fortunately. Some of them were treated by the British when they had wounds, but they knew that they were changing their whole lives. You know, I mentioned Robert Morris, richest man in the colonies, and he starts just writing checks for the revolution, for the Continental Army, raising funds, buying ships that then get sunk by the British. He dies, and he has just a pocket watch that his father had given him. It's the only thing he has left to his name, and the papers don't even mention that he died. He just that was it. His life was just over, but he left this incredible legacy. And I think that's amazing that people would choose to give up their comfort. You think today of how we hold people who serve in the military in awe, and we respect them because they give up all those holidays at the very least, but they also may give up their lives. And then people denigrate them. Well, they have no other choice. Well, they didn't know this and that. These men knew exactly what they were signing. And when they put that they risked their lives, this wasn't just a post on Twitter, the Declaration of Independence. Today we take for granted we can petition the government for redress of grievances, that we can take any president almost and call him mean, vile names and say that we think he's horrible, he should be thrown out of office. They didn't live in that world. That was not the world outside of what was then the Philadelphia State House. We call it Independence Hall after 1824 when Lafayette visits, because that's what happened there. But it gives us the impression that they built it because they knew they were going to have independence. It would all be easy. Let's build a building called Independence Hall and we'll declare independence. But it wasn't that. They didn't know what was going to happen. Richard Stockton, who the rest stop on the New Jersey Turnpike is named after, he was grabbed out of his bed, just dragged out of his home, and he's marched in leg irons 20 miles through New Jersey to make a spectacle of him, thrown in jail, starved. This is not something we picture today's richest man, let's say, and Elon Musk doing. People may have opinions, but they take for granted that maybe they can buy an ad, or they can fund a PAC, or they can run for office. They didn't have those options. Their only option was we risk everything, down to our lives, down to our families' lives, or we continue to live under the thumb of the king. And they decided that living under the king was not worth their comforts, that they would rather give up all those comforts. It's an incredible sacrifice, and we enjoy the fruits of it today, and I think it's worth remembering.
Absolutely it is. On this day, July 4th, in the year 1938, Bill Withers was born. Singer-songwriter. 1972 broke on the scene big with Lean On Me. After that, it was Use Me. 1988, this one. Believed to be the longest single note held in a song in this song, Lovely Day. James Golden, Snerdley, with you here, Saturday morning extravaganza on this, America's 250th birthday, July 4th, 2026. It's going to be my friends. Keep it right here. Coming back with Gene Carianis and your calls, 800-848-9222.
This is the James Golden Show. James Golden Show. 4 words that mean business. With James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
On this day in July, the year 1911, American conductor, record producer, and record industry executive Mitch Miller was born. Sing along with Mitch. This went to number 1 in 1955, The Yellow Rose of Texas. Now, how'd you like to be Mitch Miller looking back and realize that your days as a record executive, you passed on Elvis Presley? Nope, we're not going to sign him. You passed on Buddy Holly. Nope, not going to sign him. You had a chance to sign the Beatles, and you said, no, I'm not signing the Beatles. I don't like rock and roll. Sing along with Mitch. Yeah. He did discover Aretha Franklin. So you put all the highs and lows together, and there's Mitch Miller. James Golden, Snerdley. Gene Carianis is with us. Dean, let me just get you to comment on this before we have to leave. Let's go look back at 250 years and where the world was. The largest and most prosperous empire in the world was the Qing dynasty in China. The Ottoman Empire was still around, straddling Europe, Asia, North Africa. Then you had in the Russian Empire, under the rule of Catherine the Great, Prussia, Frederick the Great. Where the heck is Prussia now? The Austrian Hamburg Empire was still dominating Central Europe. The biggest global power in terms of landmass in the world was Spain. Spain, controlling South America, Central America, parts of North America, the Philippines. France was a big deal, but they were involved in this. They had lots of holdings in the Caribbean, sugar colonies. And that, of course, was part of the American Revolution. And then there was Great Britain with the preeminent naval power of the era. What a world that America entered into, and a lot has changed. Where is the Qing dynasty? Well, China's still a force. The Ottoman Empire, gone. Austrian Empire, gone. Prussia, gone. Go ahead, Dean.
I was just giving a little Greek yay for the Ottoman Empire being gone. Sorry, can't help it. But you listen to the one you listen there, and what do you hear? Empire, empire, empire. These were not places you could vote, of course. These are not places you could even complain in many of them. And when you look back at some of the torments that they would put people to or through for daring to speak their minds, you just shudder. They talk about cruel and unusual punishment. Well, that's something that's just a phrase a lot of people use. And I say that as a columnist myself. I always, shake those words, shake those phrases, say, where did you come from? Tell me your story. Well, when you look at things like being drawn and quartered, things like being covered in honey or in oil and left for the animals to feast on you, there's a process in ancient Persia that is so horrendous, I can't even say it on the radio what they would do to people. And it could just be anything that they could just want your land, and that would be it. The government would say, well, we're taking it, and we're also going to torture you horribly and let you die over many days. And so that's the world that they come into. Now, the British Empire may not have been tormented to that degree, but you were certainly liable to be drawn and quartered, had everything taken away, no opportunity to have your court case or your case heard before a court of law. If you were George Washington, I don't know if anyone out there has seen the movie Young Washington. I did see it. I'll be writing about it in the New York Sun in the coming days, just from a historical perspective. But he's born as the second son. He's not a guy who has the privilege that we associate with him that, well, he must have walked in any room and he got whatever he wanted. And he wasn't that guy. And the movie shows that. He was a guy who walks in and they say, you have no land, you have no title, you're born in the colonies, you're a colonial, you're a provincial. They can't insult him enough throughout the movie. And as a viewer, you're saying, don't you know who he is? And that was the thing. Nobody knew this was possible.
Dean, thank you so much for being with us on this Independence Day. We always love hearing from you, my friend. Dean Karayanis will be back, folks. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Time for your pick of the day. Who is it?
My pick of the day?
Ian? Hello, Mike.
Hello?
Your turn.
All right, this week we have the Grateful Dead. With the 4 surviving members, they gave what they said what would be their final performance, playing over 70,000 fans in Chicago's Soldier Field. The shows came 20 years after the death of lead guitarist Jerry Garcia, who played his last show in the nation's third largest city in 1995.
Wow, Grateful Dead. Which one is this from Grateful Dead?
This one is... I believe this one is The Friend of the Devil.
Yes. That would be the Democrats. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. America's Doctor is with us, Dr. Peter Miklas. Dr. Miklas, welcome. America's Doctor, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, and it's an honor to be on with a great truth teller and critical thinker that covers everything happening in the world with clarity and good humor and compassion. And I'm just happy to be with you celebrating this 250th anniversary of our amazing, great nation.
I am glad to have you here. You know that when I see something and it startles me concerning medicine or science and medicine, you are the first person I think of. I don't know anybody that explains things like you do or can explain them like you do. So I saw a story this week, and I shared it with you it was in the New York Times, on the creation of a human cell by man, by scientists. I've got to ask Dr. Miklas, I sent you the story. What do you think about this development? Can you explain what happened, first of all, and then tell us what you think about it?
Sure. Trying to create a cell or creating basically a living cell is called SPUD. It's a SPUD cell, and that's synthetic biology. And basically the SPUD cell is the first cell that's been artificially created that has a full life cycle. And what does a full life cycle mean? Each one of our cells, it feeds, it grows, it replicates, and it dies. So that's how our cells function, and they're self-sufficient. The difference between this, I hate to use the word Frankensteinish creation, is that it's not self-sufficient because it can't build its own proteins. It doesn't have the little factory centers called ribosomes that build the proteins of our cells. So that's the difference. And it also has to be fed externally. It needs to be fed the enzymes, which are like the gasoline to make things happen, and it needs to be fed the proteins to continue to go through that life cycle. So that's the difference. The concern is that once you start creating cells, just like when you start doing gain of function research and you start playing with life, sometimes it can take on a life of its own. And the other concern that I have that nobody's talking about in these articles, if viruses, for example, find these cells to be a weaker form of life and they infect these cells and they basically become a hotel or host for some deadly viruses, that could, I think, be a potential problem when man starts creating new biology. I can see where this would have applications. For example, if we could create red blood cells and we have shortages in blood transfusions, for example, and to create some artificial blood cells for the battlefield, for trauma, for car accidents, if we had a major casualty event, I can see where that has great benefit, but we also have to be very careful when we create new life, the ethical implications, and also for our long-term safety as humans. But in the area of cellular biology, one of the biggest events in medicine that's probably happened in 100 years just happened on June 9th, where the first human was injected with OSK genes, and what they are is Dr. Yamanaka in Japan got the Nobel Prize and found that each one of our cells has a younger copy of our software. And in Boston, Dr. David Sinclair injected this into blind mice and blind apes, and they restored the eyesight. The actual eye went back to a younger age. Yes, this is happening. Jeff Bezos already put in $3 billion into Altos Labs and this company, Life Biosciences. These are not public companies; they're private. I have no proprietary interest. But the first human now was injected by the company on June 9th, and that will change the world. Why did it change the world? Because they also took these OSK Yamanaka genes, injected it into wild mice at Stanford University, and they lived 109% longer, an extra 200 days, which is an extra 34 years in human years. So medicine is about to change completely, and this is like a quiet revolution. And
wait a minute. Stop.
You're telling me that they have discovered what I guess some people are going to call the fountain of youth gene, meaning we can go back, grab the earlier replica of your cells, inject you with them, and use that, this is at least in animals so far, to cure you of diseases that sprung up later.
Absolutely, because aging should be a diagnosis, because if you slow aging, and it's a partial reprogramming, what it does, it brings you back like a decade each time you do it. And when you do the partial reprogramming, the software of our younger cells and our younger cells gets activated, and basically you will we still have a limit of 120 years, but what we'll do is we'll extend health span. It's not about lifespan, it's extending health span. So our period, our end of life period, our morbidity period will be dramatically reduced to maybe just a few months instead of being sick for 10 years. So if you make cells younger, then you're not going to get the heart attack or the Alzheimer's or the prostate cancer. And another fascinating thing is when they gave it to the animal model that had cancer, the cancer even started improving, because when you got younger, your mechanism for cleaning up and killing cancer cells and your T killer cells worked more efficiently. So this is totally wild. So if people want to read more about it, just put in OSK, Yamanaka genes, age reversal. And I actually did send you recently an article that just came out last week about summarizing it, and they did a nice job on summarizing what's happening. But this is like a major, major revolution that's happening as we speak. And I think about all these people out there with macular degeneration, with people, for example, with the GLPs who've lost vision because of arteritis in the back of the eye, people with retinitis pigmentosus. They're going to have amazing hope. So I'm sitting here waiting. And even at the great Columbia University in New York, they're doing 4 patients with it as well. So there are several centers around the United States that are part of this study with the OSK Yamanaka gene. So we're going to be hearing more about it on your great show, and it's going to change and revolutionize healthcare.
This is a revolution. This could change everything in terms of fighting disease as we know it and fighting the effects of aging as we know it.
Absolutely. And, that's why we live in an amazing country, and a lot of the great things that happen here. And before I go, I just want to give a big shout out to Haim Solomon, who was the financier of the Revolutionary War. Everyone gives Robert Morris the credit because he was actually the official superintendent. But the guy who actually converted those French loans and had the connections in Europe was a Polish-Jewish immigrant named Haim Solomon, and he was able to actually get the money to the Continental Congress and to the soldiers. And at the Battle of Yorktown, when George Washington asked Robert Morris for money, he said, "We're out of cash." And he said, "Talk to Haim Solomon." And Haim Solomon came up with the $20,000 at the Battle of Yorktown to buy the bullets, pay the soldiers. And we won that battle. And that was the turning point of the war. And that's why there was a stamp made of him in 1975. And there's a statue of him in Chicago standing next to George Washington. So that's just an important person that got lost in history because he had to do everything as a spy and undercover and sentenced to death twice and escape. But there are a lot of unsung heroes in the American Revolution. And, God bless America, this great country that now produces all these amazing inventions, from antibiotics to all these surgical techniques that all often start in America, and then the rest of the world waits for us to see what we're doing.
This is just, what a fascinating story. You are just such great information, a source of great information. Doctor, I have to have you back because we have to talk about this further and keep developments of it. There are going to be so many people interested in finding out more, finding out if there are going to be any clinical trials using some of these things so that people can, we're on the precipice of a major life-changing revolution in the field of medicine. This is amazing.
The clinical trials happening now in Boston and other major centers that I measured, and we'll keep everyone up to date because you keep everyone up to date, not just in medicine in politics and philosophy and history, and that's why everyone I know and many of my friends love listening to your show every week and every day.
You are just wonderful. Thank you for that. And they love listening to it too, and I love listening to you. I'm telling you, you are America's doctor. You come in and talk about things in a way that we can all understand, and you make it understandable for us. And the information that you provide, like you just did today, for people that are hearing this, somebody is going to take advantage of this information, and their lives will be changed because of it, for the better. And thank you for all that you do. You have committed your life for getting the information so that people can have better lives. What a beautiful soul you are, Dr. Mikolas. And we thank you, and I'm so happy to call you a friend and to say to you that you are America's doctor.
Thank you very much, James. And everyone out there, continue to think positive and test negative.
Think positive, test negative. You have to love that. What a great slogan. Think positive, test negative. Johnny Cash made his last ever live performance. Tomorrow's the anniversary of that in 2003. It was the Carter Ranch. Before he sang this song, which of course was written by June, he read a statement about his late wife, June Carter. He said, "The spirit of June Carter overshadows me tonight with the love she had for me and the love I have for her. We connect somewhere between here and heaven. She came down for a short visit, I guess, from heaven to visit with me tonight to give me the courage and inspiration like she always has." What a beautiful statement from Johnny Cash to his late wife. Tomorrow's the anniversary of that, 2003. We'll be back, folks. Your calls coming up. Princess Di coming up as well. Dr. Mikolas just blew my mind. Thank you, Doctor. We'll be right back.
I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with
Kanye West announced on Twitter back on this day in 2020 he would be running for president. That didn't work out well. Maybe he ought to consider running for senator or in Maine. Oh, wait, Graham Plantner. Well, maybe he can run with Graham. The two of them together. Anyway, James Golden, Snerdley, here we are. Independence Day, July the 4th, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the American Independence Day. Let's go to Georgia and check in with Adrian. Adrian, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Golden, and thank you for taking the call. And happy birthday to us all. The Republic is still standing after 250 years.
Amen to that. So what is on your mind this morning, Adrian?
Two things. Your previous caller mentioned 1976. On July 4th, 1976, I was in New York City for a job interview, and I took advantage of the situation and paid $2 to take an elevator to the top of World Trade Center 1, where I watched from the roof the tall ships enter New York Harbor. Followed up in 88 with Lady Liberty in the harbor. It's a wonderful place to celebrate this country. But I have a question that it's a rush question that I've wanted to ask Rush and now you for more than 20 years. And it has to go back with the time that I first heard Rush's voice driving in my car in 1988 in Atlanta on WGST, when the show topic was Ebonics, and Rush was going to ask a question, and he asked five questions, and I did not believe the show could survive something so politically incorrect. And my question has to do with you and whether Bo Snerdley was involved in that show and whether you remember that day.
I remember the Ebonic discussion. That was Rush. I have since, and I still try to keep the memory alive by asking questions myself ebonically and reaching out to the Ebonic Nation.
I hear you each time.
That was Rush, though. It was hysterical. And he would do things like that. That is what made him so great. And I, like the 24 undeniable truths of life. When you get to some of those, the women's movement is best viewed walking behind it. And things like that. Oh, my God. You make me laugh. But that was Russ. We're going to ask you something. Yes. Thank you for the call, Adrian. You remember, Princess Diana's going to be here a little bit later. You have made my day. I'm sure you made Princess Diana's day with that one, too. That's funny. Oh, man, Rush, the great Rush Limbaugh. Okay, let's go to Eddie in Staten Island. Eddie, you're up next. How are you? Staten Island, New York.
Good morning, James. I'm sorry I haven't called in a long time. Man, I listen to you every day. You are the best. And thank God for John Casamides for enabling the American public to hear the commentary that keeps us free. Our founding fathers gave us the Constitution as an inheritance, and it is up to us to preserve it. I feel so humble growing up as a poor Puerto Rican in the Bronx and got away from living a life of dependency, even though I was grateful for my grandmother, and now living a life of self-reliance. Self-reliance is important for everybody in this country so we can move forward. Think of the progress this country has developed, such as you have been speaking about earlier, that has moved the entire world forward. James, we have to protect our freedoms and liberty. We have to protect the world because the world has benefited from where we stand. It is important. Our inheritance is to protect freedoms and liberty. James, I love you, man. You're the best, and you know I'll be calling again. Take care, brother.
Eddie, thank you. What a blessing you are. Thank you for such a wonderful call. I appreciate it. And you are a blessing. Everyone in this audience, I appreciate you so much. Sandra, I think we have about 2 minutes or a minute. Want to get to you real quick. Happy 4th, Sandra. What's on your mind this morning?
Oh, good morning. My phone isn't out. I wanted to say to you, Bo, this is very short and very, very sweet. We go back a long time, and you are so wonderful. I want to thank you for standing by our country and bringing a shining bright light to America every single day. You are the best, and you teach us so much, Bo, and I just love you, and I wanted to thank you on this very special day.
How sweet are you? And I don't feel like I deserve any of this, but thank you. I'm here just like all of you, and I'm a student just like many of us are. I learn something new every day, especially about America, I ask questions, and I will tell you now, you can ask questions now and get answers to them using AI that would have taken you hours to research, and I'm starting to use it more and more to just get answers to certain things that historically, like I did a search. It took me maybe a half an hour to get through all of it, but I did a search on looking at where America was when you go back 250 years. What was the state of the world? What was the state of the world when you go back 500 years? What was the state of the world when you go back 750 years and then 1,000 years? And what astounds me, and I don't have time to go through it all, but here's the thing that astounds me most. The rise and fall of the great powers. And this is why when I opened the show, I said America is a toddler. If you look just in terms of what we know of recorded history, we're a newborn. America is a newborn. When you look at recorded history and you measure that against the time that America has been, there has been no other nation that has rose so quickly to become the world superpower. And it is a force for good. And so when people complain about all the flaws of America, it would sort of be like saying, well, we were born and, we had a rough few days. And then we started to heal ourselves. Or we got healed by our Creator. We had a few rough days at first. And that's where America is and still is right now. We are young. And it's up to us to grow this nation and continue to grow this nation strong so that it will last for generations and for eons. Princess Di is coming up, ladies and gentlemen, when Hour 3 begins. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show is on the air with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Our number duo in the can. Our number trio here. The Saturday morning extravaganza underway. Your Saturday morning vibe on this America's 250th birthday. It is time, ladies and gentlemen.
It's time for Radio Royalty with James Golden and America's Princess of Policy, Princess Di.
The goodness, the loveliness, the analysis-ness that you get nowhere else. The wonderfulness of our very own princessness. She is Princess Diana, and here on American Independence Day-ness. Welcome, Your Highness.
Oh, Sir James, the Duke of Democracy, and I must add, the critical thinker extraordinaire.
I'm not a critical thinker. You're not a critical thinker.
Yeah, okay, but...
Yeah, okay. Before we begin, Princess, I want to just run something by you. You know, you've heard me talk, all of you do, and I really want to stress this. I don't bash people's religions. I'm not into that. I don't do religious bashing. I have devout Muslim friends. I have devout Christian friends. I have devout Jewish friends. I have devout Sikh friends. I have people who love God, regardless of, and who are true with their devotion. And of course, it's not for me to judge that. God judges the hearts of men. I'm not going to bash people's religions. Don't do it. Never do it. Don't want to ever do it. And if I ever say something that sounds like it, I'll apologize for it in advance because I don't mean to ever do that. The Pope made some remarks that kind of bothered me, Princess Diana. He urged the United States to, quote-unquote, recommit to the founding ideas of protecting life, human dignity on this, our 250th anniversary. And the word recommit in this, because we have been committed to it from the beginning. This American experiment has been a commitment to live up to the words of our Declaration of Independence. And I've said earlier, if you look at in the timeline of human history, we have done it within the blink of an eye. We had a few troubled days as a nation, if you look at it in the longer timeline, and we began the process almost immediately of self-correction and healing the things that we didn't have in our founding documents. And so this remark bothered me tremendously. It's like Mondami when he started talking about surrounded by other immigrants, and he started talking about immigrants. And this whole push, these snarky remarks come because we're particularly looking at illegal immigration. Let's face it, that's where a lot of these remarks come from. And when I saw this remark from the president, he said he's praying for the United States to recommit itself to the founding ideals of protecting life and human dignity. And how about many of us pray for the church to recommit itself to ideas that were once common, like you should obey the laws of your land, like there is a good and a bad, like God is perfect and God did not make mistakes when he created men and women. Like life is important. And so why does the church give a pass to so many political figures who support the heinous genocide called abortion? So really, you want to talk about recommitment? How about recommitting to the idea that children are not prey for sexual desires among members of the clergy? How about that? How about recommitting? I mean, this stuff bothers me, this whole emphasis from some people that America, let's use this day to bash the hell out of America. I'm not with it.
Well, I agree with you totally. And I do not think that is, in any way bashing a religion when any figure, swerves into political statements, then that's in the arena of politics. And so your response is completely legitimate to take that sentiment to task and to put it in context. So I don't think you should put it in the category of bashing religion at all. You're basically saying the Pope stepped out of his lane.
I just want to be careful because I respect the Pope. I respect him. I do. I respect the papacy, despite looking back at history and seeing what the papacy has done in certain instances that they've never apologized for. But I just don't want to be, I'm not a religion, so it just makes me uncomfortable, that's all.
Well, but I think you handled it perfectly, and the criticism is valid.
Now,
but James, listen, before we get into it, I just want to say a personal just feeling about today. The 250th birthday of our country. I just want to thank America. I am so fortunate and blessed to have been born here. And I look back at the blessings of liberty and how I was able to raise my children and, take care of them, and with skills that really traditionally, as a writer and editor, those things have not been anything you could support a family with. And I just know that America, because of the promises of liberty, I was able to, beyond my wildest imagination, succeed and to take care of my family. And I just want to thank the country for that. And I also want to thank my father, who I've said these stories before, who was a World War II vet and patriotic. And I was very cynical when I was coming up. And one time I was in the backseat of the car, he was driving, and he said something probably pro-American, and I was very sneery, and I said, oh, that's just nationalism. And he pulled the car over, and he said, that is not nationalism, that is patriotism. I did not fight my way across Europe to have my kids sit there and sneer at patriotism. This is America. I have never forgotten that moment. I was 15 years old, and I was stunned because my father was very kind to me and I was, special to him as firstborn. And for him to be that angry and to basically pull the car over and scold me, and I did not understand the lesson he was telling me, but I do now, and I'm so grateful. That's one of the things that I'm so happy to have later in life, is that feeling of patriotism and love of country, and a lot of it was instilled in me by my dad. Another story, just quick, is he told me this story when he was 18 years old and in France after the liberation of towns, and he and his troops were marching through the liberated towns, and he looked up at a balcony and he saw a young woman who was just cheering and celebrating the American troops. And he realized, as an 18-year-old, that his country did not come into that town to conquer it, that his country, America, had come into that town victorious to give her back her life. And he understood that about America as an 18-year-old soldier. And he told me that. And I am so grateful for that insight and for that understanding that he got in that moment, glimpsing that young woman who was now free to live her life. And so those personal recollections I just wanted to say before we got into everything else.
I have moist eyes here. Thank you for sharing that. And that made me think of something my dad, like your dad, served in World War II, and my dad served in the Korean War. Since you shared a story about your dad, I want to share one about my dad, because he didn't talk about the war that often. And he would not talk. And let me tell you something. 4th of July was not a pleasant day for my dad, because the fireworks, they bothered him. They bothered him. And you could see his reaction to it. He would sometimes hear something and he would flinch. And it was a reaction to what his war experiences were.
Yes.
So, but I want to share one story with you. My dad, of course, a black man, fighting in World War II, fighting in Korea, while the country was still telling him, you ain't nothing but a nigger. And you will not leave it, because that's what it was. And he was treated like that. He was called that. He was taught, he was told that. But my dad told me a story out of World War II out of the Korean War, that I will never forget. He was stationed in Korea, and he said the company that he was with, there was a white company. They were still segregated. Thank you, Democrats. And the black company. And he said, it's this one instance, he said some of the white soldiers had gotten drunk and whatever, and left their arms, left their guns. And he said there were Korean prisoners of war. And they came and gave my father the guns that some of the white troops had left. And he said, do you know why they did that, son? No, because I treated them kindly and they respected me. And he said, this is something that and I keep saying this about my dad, one of the things that was most important to my dad, and he raised us all, the constant message was, be kind to people, regardless of who they are. Be kind to them. And he used that as an illustration of, and this is one of the reasons why I keep telling you kids, be kind to people, because you never know what circumstances you will find yourself in where somebody needs to be kind with you. Be kind to people. And he didn't talk about the war, but that was the one story he shared of his war experiences with us.
Wow. Well, I have moist eyes as well. That is just so wonderful. Thank you for telling that story. So important.
Yeah. Man, it's just amazing. And your dad, Diana, that stays with you. Your dad, the Shakespearean actor, all of it.
A lot of it. No, yes. Speaking of,
you hit a spot there that really hit home with him, and yeah.
Well, I also you reminded me about 4th of July and the fireworks sound. We lived near Westchester County Airport, and there would occasionally be times where an airplane would fly over very low. And when I was very young, my father would dive to the floor in our kitchen because of his training, basic training. When the planes come overhead, you dive. And it was so instilled on him that this was in the early 1950s still, that he still had that effect. So, and he did lose a great deal of his hearing from the war. So that legacy was part of my childhood and my upbringing. And I am so glad as an adult that I now share his love of country, which I did not have as a teenager.
Man, oh man. James Golden and Snurley, Princess Diana's here. We're going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness. Why would you do this to me when Princess Di is on the line? Make me go to my voice. Oh, my goodness, baby. You are my first. Every dream. All my dreams. On July 4th, 2003, American record producer, singer-songwriter, and 5-time Grammy Award winner Barry White passed away. Only 58 years old. The music lives on from his girl group Love Unlimited to all his great songs and great creations. The one and only Barry White went to heaven on this day in 2003. Princess Diana is here with us. My everything. Keep it right
here. The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Dream, 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 dream.
Chet Atkins is on guitar on this one. That's Chet Atkins playing guitar. The Everly Brothers were at number 1. July 4th, 1958. All I Have to Do Is Dream. It was their first number 1 single. 2 takes. And they knocked it out of the park. James Golden Snurley with you here, Saturday Morning Extravaganza. Princess Di with us. Your Highness, Dean Karayanis was on with us, Dean from our Rush alumni, and he talked about something that you had a major role in. You was publisher, the editor, the editrix of the Limbaugh Letter, where Rush published every year the story, so many stories about America's founding, America's greatness, but in particular of the signers, those 56 signers. And I just wanted to please have you say a few words about that and what they risked and everything that the founders of America contributed.
This is a wonderful legacy of Rush's dad. Rush's dad used to give a speech going over the stories of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and he was in great demand locally in Missouri, and he would give talks to local groups and give the small biographical details. He would set the scene. He was a great orator, according to Rush. His dad was a great orator. He was a lawyer. He would set the scene of the heat of the summer, of the signers and the flies coming in the window. And he gave this speech many, many times. And so in the Limbaugh Letter, Rush wanted to basically get it down in print. And so this is the oral tradition of Rush's dad. And so he summarizes a lot of the hardships that the signers went through. And I'll just read a paragraph here. Of those 56 who signed the Declaration of Independence, 9 died of wounds or hardships during the war. 5 were captured and imprisoned, in each case with brutal treatment. Several lost wives, sons, or entire families. 1 lost his 13 children. 2 wives were brutally treated. All were, at one time or another, the victims of manhunts and driven from their homes. 12 signers had their homes completely burned. 17 lost everything they owned, yet not one defected or went back on his pledged word. Their honor and the nation they sacrificed so much to create is still intact. And so if you can find it on the internet, it is well worth a read. Maybe you want to put it on your daily BS so people can read it. The whole speech is very, very much worth reading. And as I said, there have been quibbles of the historical accuracy, but this is oral tradition from Rush, and it is based on the large truth of the risk that was taken by the founders, and we do benefit the blessings of it. And interestingly enough, the Declaration of Independence, which, as we know, was signed in 1776, was also a declaration of war. The British did not surrender until 1781. So this was the beginning of more hardship, but we bear the blessings of it today.
Wow. Princess Diana, stay there. There's some telephone calls for us and more discussion up ahead. American Independence Day 2026, the 250th anniversary of America's birth. James Golden, Bo Snerdley, Princess Diana is here. Whatever you do, stay here with us. And do not dare go away. So much more to come.
James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
Little YouTube brings us back. James Golden, Snerdley with you here.
Shoots up through the stony ground.
Saturday morning, your Saturday morning extravaganza, fastest 3 hours in American media. Princess Di is here with us. We're going to grab a few telephone calls, but before we do, Princess Di, Mondami's speech is being described as a dark speech. I hate that term racistly. A dark speech in which he blasted Elon Musk, blasted supremacy, seemed to claim that American immigrants, illegal immigrants, we're the same drivel that we get from the left, that we're not a good nation because we're actually enforcing immigration law. What do you think about his attacks on Elon Musk and pretty much the flaws of America, according to Mondani?
Well, I have not gotten over that whole image of him sitting behind George Washington's desk, although the desk was backwards for some reason. And he was surrounded by these new citizens who were just treated as props, and they were looking so sullen and unhappy, these new citizens, and holding their little American flags, and there was no joy, not a smile. The whole scenario was just off-putting. And then to have Mondami say, we see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. And that attack on Elon, I thought Elon had the best response, which was just a single statement. Mondami has built nothing. He's a taker, never a maker. As opposed to Elon, who's got factories and companies and satellites that are helping the world and vehicles and creation and rockets and all of these things that are, blessing for, millions of people based on his ambition to go to Mars. But he is benefiting Earth, and he is especially benefiting this country. And to have Zoran sneer at him and basically imply that children are hungry because Elon is wealthy based on his achievements, I think the entire speech should never be forgotten because it was a slap in the face and a slander.
Well, this is typical. I read some stuff from Elon. It's disgusting, and I've seen from several others using the 4th of July to pretty much argue the point that the founding fathers would sure be okay with open borders and with illegal immigration. And how dare we enforce American law on this America's Independence Day? It's just, to me, the whole thing is just, it's what they are. Yeah. It is who they are. Let us take some telephone calls, shall we, Princess Di? Maddie is calling in from West Hempstead. You were on with Princess Diana and on with Snerdley. How are you, Maddie?
Well, first of all, God bless America, and it is a privilege to have both of you on. I listen to you every Saturday morning starting at 7 o'clock, and don't shut you off until you go off. But the reason I called this morning is because even though the Declaration was written and applied at the time it was, and the Constitution came a number of years later, the Constitution is an employment contract for all these congressmen and women to follow their job description, and for them to say something contrary to their employment of being employed and paid by our taxpayer dollars is really appalling. So I just wanted to throw that out and say that that Constitution is an employment contract, and if they don't want to be employed by the United States, go find another job.
Princess, what do you say to that?
Well, I think that's well said. I have nothing to add to that.
I love it. Which means, by the way, do you think that the Republicans will have the guts to actually think about not seating this new congresswoman who believes that the United from Colorado that believes that we deserved 9/11 and so many of her other writings are coming out now? Do you think they have the guts to actually put up a fight about that?
Including America should be eradicated. No, I do not. Right. I do not ever expect, backbone and spine from the Republicans. I will be delighted if I'm wrong. But
it ain't gonna happen.
A long time.
She'll be sitting right up there with the new squad. She'll be part of the new squad, the commie squad.
Yep, squad 2.0.
Yeah, squad 2.0. Gail in Pennsylvania, you're on with Princess Diana with Snerdley this morning on our Saturday morning extravaganza. How are you? Gail?
Great. Good morning. Love your show. I saw Young George Washington, the movie, and I felt such patriotism watching it. It really gave the sense of what the colonists, how they were treated in a sense. He has such character, and the movie showed the development of his character, which was very honorable, very brave, very ambitious, yet humble, willing to learn. And he escaped many, many times death, even while young, and definitely felt it was providential. In fact, the Indian chief, which is based in historical fact, said that he was protected by the Great Spirit. And I really thought of President Trump today, how he has escaped death a number of times and plots against him, etc. And it was a very, very heartwarming movie, especially in this era where there's a strong communist movement.
Wow. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that. Anything you want to add to that, Princess Di?
Well, I have heard so much about that movie. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And
we haven't understood. Wow. Tell you what, we're going to try to grab another quick call from Alex in Connecticut. Alex, you're on. Good morning. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Extravaganza. How are you, Alex?
Thank you, Bo. I appreciate you picking up the call. It's the first time I've ever called the show. First time, long time, as they say. I just wanted to make a comment about what you had mentioned about the Pope. While I agree, I think that there's nuances to this immigration issue that the Pope is, leaning on in a way that I think is not as good. I do think that the 2 points I'd like to make. One is that, when we talk about human dignity, certainly the country can do better with human dignity, right? And abortion and the trans culture and sexual exploitation and so on. And that is, in my opinion, what he thinks, what he should be leaning on. But also, you got to understand, he's the Pope, right? So he's trying to send a message of trying to help those who are in need. Now, the one thing I would say, and you've always been so fair to callers who disagree with you, and I really appreciate that. You've really been a light in that regard. But I will say that what you mentioned about the Pope and the sexual scandals and all that, a little like the old saying where people say, "Hey, no offense," and then they go on to offend you. I think that's a trope that's used a lot of times, and it damages what is the church, not the people who did those things. And certainly those horrible things should be shunned out. And I think the church is doing a better job to really try to foster that. But it is offensive, and I think it damages not only the church but the people within it, and how we want to spread the message of God and Jesus. So, I just
in Los Angeles, they just settled. In Los Angeles, they just did another massive settlement over. It's not over. I wish it were. You know what happened in Boston. You know that this was not some isolated incident. And we only hear a lot about the stories that happened in America. Goodness knows what has happened in other countries. So
that has nothing to do with the heart of the.
Here's what it has to do with. No. Here's what it has to do with, and just begging your pardon, and please hear me out, okay? This institution of the church is so vast, and we have seen instance after instance where they were informed of what was taking place and moved people to other positions. They didn't curtail the actions. Now, I don't want the whole church to get smeared with it, but you look at why there's been such a drop in membership. And part of it is because people are not happy with the way that their own church responded to what is a major crisis. Do I think that this is reflective of all of the those that serve? Of course not. Of course not. But to me, again, my point in all this, before you start picking up rocks and trying to throw them politically at the United States and this president, make sure that your own glass is kind of clear. Make sure that you've cleaned up your own glass before you start throwing rocks at other people's glass. That was my point. I'll give you the last word on this, Alex, because, again, I do want to be fair, and I don't want to say anything disparaging of a whole religion. I really, as I said, I feel really uncomfortable talking about this stuff. But I'm going to talk about it, though. So, Alex, I'm going to give you the last word on it.
All right, well, thank you. And you used the reference, so I will say, you mentioned about throwing rocks and looking at your own self. I think that could basically be applied to just about everybody who ever says anything. There are plenty of other religions who have these scandals. There are plenty of other institutions. You talk about things like the Boy Scouts and the different schools and different things like that. If you really went through and you attack every single institution that's had these in their institution, there would be no institutions, and it's a big blight on the soul of the church. But it is also a distraction from what is really the mission of the church. And these are from people. These are from human beings who made really bad actions, who performed very bad actions, and were probably influenced by evil. But that has nothing to do with the message. And unfortunately, even though you say you don't want to, I get that, and I believe you don't want to. That's what it does, and this is the reason why it constantly gets pervasive throughout the system. It's the same reason why you could attack not you personally, why people could attack the Catholic Church, but you can't say anything about other religions. There are certain religions that you can't touch, right?
I don't. By the way, I am not a Catholic. By the way, I'm not a Catholic. I have the hold on. I have the Catholic Missal, which I love reading. I go to Mass occasionally. On occasion, I've gone to Mass and love it, and always have. And I have a great affinity for the Catholic Church. And for devout Catholics, I totally have affinity. So there you go. I'm going to leave it at that because time is running out, and I so appreciate you. Alex, I really appreciate your call. I hope you call again. Thank you. Ross, your own Princess Di and Snurdly here. Time is dwindling. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Bo. I'll try to make it quick. Just that I am blown away by the reaction of people visiting this country for the World Cup and everything, and how they continually say that our nation has been so vilified throughout the world, through the media, in Europe, in Japan, in all these places, and they're coming here and they love the United States. Some of them don't want to go home. And I tell them it's the same thing that they've done with our presidents through the same media that you're getting over in Europe and in different places, how they vilified this man. And I really honestly believe that President Trump has a deep love and patriotism for the United States, and wants us to continue to excel in the ideals and what we've brought to the world,
Thank you. I appreciate that. Princess Di, comment?
I agree 100%. It's been just so marvelous to hear the heartfelt enthusiasm that visitors have had for the World Cup. And it is such a rare thing that we as Americans have been so pleased and surprised, because when do we ever hear our country in a favorable light, except in your program, of course, and in some social media. But in general, the media is nothing but negativity. And, just to have someone appreciate America is just a breath of fresh air to all of us. And so that is one of the reminders that I think all of us need to constantly say out loud how we feel about America and not be cowed, because in, many circles, it is not cool to say positive things about America, but we all have to agree we will be supporters and express our thanks for this country.
Kevin in Colorado, welcome. How are you? We got about a minute for you, Kevin. Just wanted to get you in quick.
Real quick here, Bo, Rush is smiling down on you. He's so proud of you. You are doing such a great good job carrying on his tradition. Man, lickety split. Keep it going, man. It's really cool.
Wow. Princess Di and I both, and Dean, were on the show. This was the Rush alumni on the show today. And you talk about the traditions. Princess Di, from day one of the Limbaugh letter until the final edition after Rush's passing of the Limbaugh letter. And we, just a note about Rush on this. What do you think Rush would say at America 250, Diana?
He would be delighted and enthused, and basically every single event they're having, I think, every 15 minutes a different flyover in D.C. of all of our military hardware today. It's unprecedented. Rush he was such an aficionado for anything with aviation. He would be watching every bit of that, and the entire celebration. He would be talking about it as he came back on the air with all the music. He would play the battle hymn of the Republic for sure.
Wow. Princess Di, hold on. We're going to wrap it up when we get back. I can't believe how quickly this goes. And I've got so many sound bites. We must have 50 sound bites. We didn't play any of them because we just talked today. So I'm going to hold some sound bites, and hopefully Princess will be with me during the week, Princess Di, and we can go through some of these things.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. James Golden, Snurley. Who's this?
Steely Dan.
You know it. Why? Because on this day, Steely Dan was number one, but they chose this day to break up. That's the short story of it. We got to go. James Golden, Princess Di is here. Just hang with us, folks. We're not done yet.
Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't want to call nobody.
The James Golden Show. The James Golden Show. It's politics, but theater of the mind with James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
On this day in 1951, Ralph Johnson, the drummer with Earth, Wind & Fire, was born. Happy birthday to Ralph Johnson. James Golden, Bo Snerdley here. Princess Diana is here. We are about to wrap up this edition, the 250th birthday of America today. Princess Diana, we are, of course, in a... Yeah, I hear people talk about this all the time. We've always been a divided nation. We've always been, and we probably always will be. People have different points of view and divided nation. But it's important, I think, that the divisions in some cases are now being drawn more sharply, with the progressives finally admitting who they are, the Democrats finally being forced to admit that the mask is coming off and they're being called what they really are, socialists, communists, as you point out. Your thoughts on where America is going in the near future?
Well, I think that you put your finger on something very important. We're getting clarity. And for so many, decades, the beneath the radar philosophy of the left has been just in sweet-sounding words. And it has fooled a lot of people. It does continue to fool some, but many people have their eyes open. And a lot of it is by their own words. They have gotten so bold now that they are no longer trying to hide. And they're running for elections instead of running to the center, which they always used to do. And they still do. In Virginia, they did it. But they are running basically flat out from the left, and it is a wonderful thing for us to be able to tell the truth about them and how dangerous they are. So the future of America is looking wonderful.
We're going to leave it there, Princess Diana. Thank you so much for being with us, as always.
For James, as always.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, I'm going to leave you with this one.
Make God thy gold refined.
Ray Charles.
All success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful. Far spacious skies.
Sing it, brother.
Far amber waves of grain.
May God bless each and every single one of you.
Far purple mountain majesties.
Bless your families and your loved ones.
Above the fruited plain. But now wait a minute. I'm talking about America, sweet.
And continue to bless this wonderful country that we are fortunate enough to be born in and be citizens of.
Shed his grace on thee.
Or want to be citizens of.
He crowned our good. Yes, he did.
Thanks, Elias. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, TJ. All the crew. Thank you, Princess Diana. Thank you.
Shining sea. You know, I wish I had somebody to help me sing this.
Sing it.
America. I love you, America. You see, my God, he done shed his face on thee. And you ought to love him for it, because he crowned our good. He told me he would. Every brotherhood.
We'll see you next time, folks. Have a great 250 American weekend.